As a young woman, I had taken many babysitting gigs to make some extra money. It was a typical evening when I arrived at the Thompsons' suburban home to look after their two children, Lily and Jake. The parents seemed friendly and gave me a quick tour of the house, including some general instructions. The evening started uneventfully. I helped the kids with their homework, prepared dinner, and watched a movie with them. But as the night wore on, I began to feel uneasy, as though I was being watched. It was a subtle, nagging feeling at first, something in the back of my mind that told me things were not right. As the kids went to bed, I decided to explore the house a bit more. I had an inkling that something was off, and I needed to reassure myself that everything was in order. The parents had mentioned the basement, but they didn't give me any reason to go down there. However, my curiosity got the better of me, and I headed toward the basement door. The moment I stepped onto the creaky wooden stairs leading down, I felt a sudden chill run down my spine. The basement was dimly lit, and the air was thick with an unpleasant, musty odor. As I descended further, I realized the source of my unease. There was someone down there with me. I paused, straining my ears to listen for any movement. What I heard sent shivers down my spine. There were soft, deliberate footsteps, like someone pacing. The sound of cracking floorboards and the occasional whisper were unmistakable. Someone was down there, and they were watching me. Fear gnawed at me, but I couldn't retreat. I had to know who was in that basement and why they were hiding there. I descended the stairs cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest. The closer I got to the bottom, the more I could hear. It was like a distant whisper, incomprehensible words that filled the air with an eerie presence. As I reached the basement floor, I hesitated for a moment, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The room was filled with old, dusty furniture and boxes, but there was no sign of the intruder. I took a step forward, and the whispering grew louder as though it was coming from all around me. The beam of my flashlight revealed a series of unsettling drawings on the walls. Distorted faces, twisted and contorted, stared back at me, their eyes filled with malevolence. It was a terrifying sight, and I could feel the fear gripping me even tighter. I moved cautiously through the basement, my heart racing with every step. I could hear the footsteps and the whispers growing louder and more frantic. Whoever was down there knew I was getting closer. Finally, I came upon a hidden corner of the basement. In the dim light, I saw a makeshift bed made from old blankets and pillows. And there, huddled in the corner, was a disheveled, emaciated figure, their face obscured by tangled hair. As I shined my flashlight on them, they let out a blood-curdling scream, the sound piercing the stillness of the basement. I recoiled in horror, realizing that the stranger had been living secretly in this house, watching our every move. I stumbled back up the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. I needed to call the police and get the children to safety. But as I reached the top of the stairs, I heard the intruder following me, their footsteps growing louder and more frenzied. I slammed the basement door shut and locked it, then rushed to the phone. My trembling fingers dialed 911, and I explained the situation to the dispatcher. Help was on the way, but in the meantime, I had to protect the children. I gathered Lily and Jake, who were terrified and confused, and we barricaded ourselves in a bedroom, waiting for the police to arrive. It felt like an eternity, but finally, the authorities showed up and apprehended the intruder. It turned out that the stranger had been living secretly in the basement for weeks, surviving on stolen food and water. They had been watching us, observing our every move, and their presence had filled the house with an eerie, unsettling atmosphere. As I stood in the safety of the bedroom, the police assured us that the intruder would be dealt with, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The horror of that night would forever stay with me, a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying threats can be hiding in the most unexpected places, giving you shivers down your spine with their presence. It was a typical evening when I arrived at the Johnsons' picturesque home to babysit their two young children, Emily and Michael. The parents had left detailed instructions, and everything seemed perfectly normal. The kids were well behaved, and our evening was filled with games, stories, and laughter. As bedtime approached, I received a polite reminder from Mr. Johnson to make myself at home and help myself with anything I needed. Feeling comfortable, I decided to explore the living room. Amidst the family photos displayed on the mantelpiece, I noticed an unusual leather-bound book hidden behind some framed pictures. It was old, its pages yellowed with age. Curiosity got the better of me, and I gently retrieved the book from its hiding place. I opened it, and to my shock, a collection of horrifying photographs lay within. They depicted different babysitters, young women like myself, each with an eerie title beneath their picture, such as Babysitter 1, Babysitter 2, and so on. The chilling part was that all the pictures showed these women in distress, with bloodstains and looks of terror on their faces. My heart raced, and I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. I had stumbled upon something that was beyond unsettling. There were dozens of pages, each filled with more and more horrifying images of babysitters who had come before me, all marked with the same numbering system. Fear began to grip me, and I felt a growing dread as I realized that the Johnsons might not be the loving family I had initially thought. What kind of family keeps a sinister collection of photos like this? My mind raced with possibilities, and the more I thought about it, the more terrified I became. Suddenly, I heard a creaking noise coming from upstairs. It was the unmistakable sound of a door slowly opening. Panic surged through me, and I knew I had to get the kids and get out of the house. I raced up the stairs, my heart pounding in my chest, and hurried to the children's room. I found Emily and Michael fast asleep, blissfully unaware of the horror that was unfolding. With trembling hands, I scooped up the children and rushed back down the stairs, glancing anxiously at the book of sinister photographs. I knew I had to escape, but I had to do it quietly to avoid detection. I reached for my phone to call for help, but it was gone, as was the landline phone in the living room. Desperation set in as I realized that I was trapped in a house with a disturbing secret, and I had no way to reach the outside world. I had to make a run for it, no matter the cost. Clutching the children tightly, I made my way to the front door, praying that it would be unlocked. With bated breath, I turned the doorknob and slowly pulled the door open. To my relief, it swung open without a sound, and I slipped outside into the night, my heart racing as I carried Emily and Michael with me. The darkness was oppressive, and I knew I had to get the children to safety. As I reached the sidewalk, I glanced back at the Johnsons' house. In the upstairs window, I saw a figure watching us, their eyes reflecting the pale moonlight. I couldn't see their face, but I could feel their malevolent gaze on us. I hurriedly made my way to the nearest neighbor's house and banged on their door, desperately pleading for help. They called the police, who arrived promptly to investigate the Johnsons' home. What they found inside was a horrifying secret that sent shockwaves through the community. It turned out that the Johnsons had been systematically luring babysitters into their homes and subjecting them to unspeakable horrors, capturing each one in a photograph to add to their sinister collection. I shuddered to think about the fate that could have befallen me and the children if I hadn't discovered their secret in time. It was a chilling reminder that evil could be hiding behind the facade of a seemingly ordinary family. As I sat in the safety of the neighbor's home, I couldn't erase the images of those terrifying photographs from my mind. The babysitters who had come before me, their faces frozen in terror, served as a haunting testament to the evil that can lurk beneath the surface, waiting to reveal itself and send shivers down your spine. My life had always revolved around work. As a single father, my job demanded long hours and constant attention, leaving me with little time to care for my two young children, Mia and Lucas. Desperate for help, I decided to hire a babysitter to ease the burden. The young woman who answered my ad seemed perfectly normal at first. Her name was Sarah, and she was cheerful, responsible, and appeared genuinely caring. She quickly bonded with Mia and Lucas, and they grew fond of her. The arrangement began smoothly, and I felt a sense of relief knowing my children were in good hands. But as the days passed, I started to notice strange things about Sarah that sent shivers down my spine. She began refusing to leave the house after her shift was over, claiming she wanted to make sure the children were comfortable and happy. At first, I considered its dedication to her job, but it soon became clear that her attachment to my children was far from typical. She would linger in their rooms long after they had fallen asleep, watching over them with an intensity that bordered on obsession. It was as if she believed herself to be their mother, and her actions grew increasingly unsettling. One evening, I arrived home unexpectedly to find Sarah in Mia's room, cradling her as if she were her own child. I couldn't hide my shock, and I asked her to leave immediately. She complied, but not without protest, insisting that she was doing what was best for the children. Despite my unease, I let Sarah continue to work, thinking her actions might have been a momentary lapse in judgment. However, her behavior only escalated. She started to watch the children from outside the house when she wasn't working, standing at the window for hours, her eyes fixed on Mia and Lucas with an intensity that sent chills down my spine. One day, I decided to confront Sarah about her unsettling behavior. I sat her down and asked her to explain her actions. Her response was far from reassuring. She claimed that she felt a deep, inexplicable connection with Mia and Lucas, and that she couldn't bear to be away from them. I knew something was seriously wrong. It was clear that Sarah's attachment to my children had crossed into a dangerous territory, and I had to protect them. I decided to terminate her employment, and I asked her to leave the house for good. Sarah's reaction was unexpected and chilling. She began to scream, insisting that she was the children's true mother and that she would do anything to keep them with her. I realized I was dealing with a woman who was not only obsessed but dangerously unstable. As I tried to usher her out of the house, Sarah became physically aggressive, scratching and clawing at me as if possessed by a manic desperation. It took all my strength to finally force her out and lock the door behind her. But my ordeal was far from over. In the days that followed, Sarah's obsession with Mia and Lucas took a more sinister turn. She began sending threatening messages, promising to take my children away and do whatever it took to keep them under her control. I knew I had to act swiftly to protect my children from this deranged woman. I sought a restraining order and contacted the authorities, who launched an investigation into Sarah's actions. It was discovered that she had a history of mental health issues and had been involuntarily committed to a psychiatric hospital in the past. The legal process was a harrowing experience, but I was determined to do whatever it took to ensure my children's safety. Sarah was placed under psychiatric evaluation, and Mia and Lucas received counseling to help them cope with the trauma of their ordeal. As time passed, my children began to heal, but the scars of their traumatic experiences would never fully fade. The horror of realizing that someone they had come to trust was capable of such madness would always linger in the shadows of their young minds. Sarah's obsession had nearly torn our lives apart, but we were fortunate to escape the nightmare she had created. The experience taught me the importance of safeguarding the well-being of my children and the devastating consequences that can result when a seemingly normal person becomes consumed by a dangerous obsession.